Very important medical disclaimer. Information provided in this podcast is for educational purposes only and does not substitute for professional medical advice. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment before undertaking a new health regimen. Welcome to the Holistic Health Explained podcast. I'm your host, Shante Fox, and my guest for today's episode is Andrea Bernard, owner of All Natural Reset, located here in Tempe, Arizona. With certifications as a peri-steam hydrotherapist, trauma-informed mental health coach, and Reiki practitioner, she blends her expertise in alternative modalities with a deep sense of compassion. Her approach is centered on meeting individuals where they are in their journey, offering gentle yet transformative practices like womb steaming, energy healing, chakra balancing, sound healing, and trauma-informed coaching. Her work is deeply rooted in personal experience, as reflected in her book, Finding 50, A Journey to Identity and Healing Through a Season of Abuse. This journey fuels her empathetic and empowering approach, helping others navigate through emotional trauma, post-abuse recovery, and self-discovery. Andrea is also trained in PQ, positive intelligence coaching, allowing her to support clients in building mental resilience and emotional strength. Through her work, she empowers others to embrace their healing, embody renewal, and move forward with confidence, all from a place of empathy and lived experience. Welcome to the show, Andrea. I am looking forward to learning more about what you do. I really want to focus on womb healing or womb steaming today because I'm sure not many people know what this is. And honestly, this term to me sounds a little scary or intimidating. So I'd like to kind of clear the air on what this is exactly. But before we do get into that, I want to ask you our icebreaker question, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Can you please share with us a fun fact or something not many people know about you?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you, Shante, for having me
You're
here.
very welcome.
I'm very excited to talk about womb steaming. And a fun fact about me is that I actually love karaoke.
Oh, okay.
Karaoke is one of my favorite things. Not a lot of people know that, but I
Yeah.
absolutely enjoy doing karaoke and or just
Singing in general.
singing, or just
Okay.
listening, just going. It's just so much fun
Yeah.
to do that.
Are you a regular anywhere here in town that you like to go?
So right now I'm actually looking for like another place, but there was a place that it was in Gilbert and they would have it every Wednesday,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not having it anymore, but it's
Okay.
always fun.
Yeah. I just had to go to a
Karaoke.
karaoke
You did.
birthday party and I was not brave enough to get up and sing. No, I am not a karaokeer.
Of course I have my songs.
Of course. Yeah. Gotta stick to
But
that, what you know, right?
mhm.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that about yourself today. So you are currently practicing here in Tempe, right?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little more about what services you offer and what you specialize in?
Okay. So some of the services that I do offer are coaching. So I do offer women's wellness coaching around trauma, emotional exhaustion, stress, burnout. I also offer womb steaming,
Hmm.
otherwise known as vaginal steaming.
Okay.
I do offer Reiki, chakra balancing. And what I haven't said is I'm also a herbalist. So I do also make herbal blends to help people. So herbal consultations and sound healing.
Okay.
Those are some of the things that I do as well.
Awesome. Okay. Well, like I said today, I'd really like to hone in on what this womb steaming is so we can clarify exactly what it is and how it's done and, any kind of misconceptions that might be out there.
Mhm.
So let's just start with what is womb steaming? And is it the same thing as what I'm hearing in the mainstream these days is calling V steaming or vaginal steaming?
Okay, so womb steaming, yes, it's what you're hearing in the mainstream known as vaginal steaming. Okay, and what it entails is it entails a woman actually sitting over a pot of herbs,
Okay.
um, and allowing the water that is actually infused with herbs and
Okay.
allowing that steam to penetrate for their reproductive system. Now, this tradition has actually been around for years.
Okay.
It's been in so many different cultures. In Latin America, the other term for it is bajos. Um,
Bajos.
bajos. So in
Okay.
countries like Guatemala, which means low down,
Mm.
um, in Korea, it's chayok,
Okay.
and in Africa, gangang. In Thailand, taggan,
Okay.
and in India, you hear the word yoni steaming.
Mm-hmm.
But this goes back to, I don't know if you've ever heard of the red tent times, when women would come together or gather together during the time that they were either menstruating or right after childbirth in different indigenous cultures. And there they would actually practice womb steaming as well as just connecting with their ancestors. And it was a time when women would come together, and these are some of the practices that would take place to help to keep the reproductive system either cleansed or refreshed, or again, right after childbirth.
Okay.
Womb steaming can be used for a variety of instances. Mostly it's used to continue or keep the reproductive system cleansed or balanced, right?
Okay.
Before, or after your cycle. But we've seen women find a lot of other benefits. It can help with libido. It
Mm.
can be great for postpartum recovery. It
Okay.
can be great for someone who has fibroids or other irregularities. It can be used to bring back a missing cycle. It can be
Mm.
used to shorten a lengthy cycle, because as women, our cycles, which should follow the moon,
Right.
right? There are times when either our menstruation is too long or it's too short.
Mm-hmm.
The normal, or what would be considered normal for most women, would be that it should be 27 to 28 days. Okay. And in terms of
Between
in
each
between
cycle.
between each time.
Okay.
And in terms of how long we actually bleed, should really be about 4 days.
Okay.
Right. So sometimes you find women who are bleeding 8, 9, and 10 days,
Right.
and that is not normal or what would be considered a healthy cycle or a
Gotcha.
healthy period.
Right.
Oftentimes, also, what we find is for women, womb steaming can also help us to, I call it, come back into ourselves, or reconnect with our bodies,
Mm.
reconnect with our feminine side, reconnect with our reproductive system. Oftentimes, even just having a period has been shamed, or we look at it in such a negative way,
Right.
when it's actually a beautiful thing, and it's a process within our body and our wombs, going through the cycle of cleansing and rebirth, cleansing and rebirth,
Right.
you know. But we whether we're having cramps, or even sometimes just how we were raised or taught, it's like, oh, this is just so painful. This is just, I can't wait till my period is over. I can't
Mm-hmm.
wait till, you know, um,
It's just an inconvenience,
it's such
right?
an
Yeah.
inconvenience. So I feel that so often we've been um, conditioned, in a sense, to not honor the beauty of our bodies. And that's
Mm.
part of our bodies as
Right.
women. And womb steaming can also bring us back into that connection,
Okay.
because whether or not you're having a period, so even once you're post menopause,
Mm-hmm.
you still have there's still always a connection that can be found or sought after with and through womb steaming. So I told you that it can be used to help
Mm-hmm.
regulate your cycle. It can be used to help, actually, even in fertility. It can be
Okay.
used to help with fibroids. It can be used to help postpartum.
The age range of women who can benefit from this is pretty much across the
It's
board.
pretty much across the board
Okay.
that you can use this service. I think of it as a time of also self-care, of a time of kind of slowing down and tuning into our bodies,
Yes,
our
definitely.
feminine.
Well, how did you first discover womb stealing and what drew you to actually incorporate it into your practice?
Interestingly enough, at the time that I discovered womb steaming, a friend told me about it. During that time period, I was beginning to learn about healthier period products
Hmm.
and learning about so many of the toxins that are found in the traditional menstrual care products
Right,
that we use.
right.
And I had started actually selling pad
Hmm.
that was healthy.
Okay.
And so a friend shared about womb steaming with me and thought that it was something that I should try. And also, I looked to get training in because at that time I just wanted to absorb everything that was healthy and holistic.
Right.
And some of that came from the fact of, for me, in the medical world, I didn't have a great experience. I had with my gynecologist.
Okay.
And so, in a sense, I was shamed for, and one gynecologist actually told me in one of our sessions that either I use it or lose it when I was having a condition of heavy bleeding. It didn't make sense to
Hmm.
me what they were saying to me.
Right. I'm
You know,
trying to like, what does
what are
that mean?
you telling
Yeah.
me about this? Then in another situation, I had a gynecologist tell me that I was in menopause, but I kept seeking after, and I know I'm kind of going around to come back.
Oh, that's okay.
And I met a naturopath. At the time, I was not having a cycle, but I didn't believe that I was in menopause at
Okay.
all. I was early 40s,
Okay.
very early 40s, and was being told that I was in menopause.
Mm.
The naturopath brought my cycle back
Okay.
within no time. So I knew something was going on within my body that the regular physicians were not able to explain, but were ready to just cast off and put me in the seat of menopause.
Right. Just accept this. This
Just
is what
accept
it is.
this. This
Yeah.
is what's going
Even
on.
though it's not normal
It's
at this
not
age. And
normal,
yeah,
you know. Um,
that's why, it's so important for us to uh, be in touch with our own bodies, right? And to know when something doesn't sound like most of the time, I think, I feel like us as women or anybody for that matter knows something about their body, like this doesn't seem right or this isn't what you're telling me doesn't feel right.
mhm,
And it's important to stand up for yourself when you feel that way, wouldn't you say? So that way you can get a second, third opinion if you need to really figure it out until you get that answer that you know in your heart to be, okay, this feels right. This sounds right. I think this is, the right path or the right direction or the right answer.
absolutely. And our bodies tell us,
Right.
our minds are telling us,
Hmm.
but we often don't listen,
Right.
right? We often don't listen because we believe that the person who's supposed to be a professional
Yeah.
knows what is the solution for us when our the solution is actually within us.
And we
And
say this every time. It's not to write off doctors and to
n-
say, all doctors are that way.
no,
There's very great doctors out there who really will take the time to listen to you and help you get down to the bottom of something. But if somebody is telling you something that doesn't sit right with you, it's important to explore that and not just accept the first thing that's given to you.
absolutely. It's important to go for that second opinion. It's important to trust your gut.
Right.
It's really important to trust your intuition. But I did digress. So, so once I began to go for training, part of it was to actually have a STEAM experience.
Hmm.
And I had a beautiful experience with it. I decided to further my training with Steamy Chick Institute. And at the time, actually consulted with one of them because, again, I went to a place of not having a cycle because I wasn't able to stay on with the naturopath. I had
Okay.
moved from one state to another. And I also wanted to address some trauma that I had.
Mm-hmm.
So I followed the guidance of the practitioner who told me what to do. And in my next session of steaming, I was put on like a 7-day protocol, steaming for 7 days straight.
Mm.
And in that time period, not only did my cycle come back, but I experienced a release of a lot of held trauma
Right.
that I
Okay.
had that I didn't even realize that I was holding.
Right.
I'm talking about I'm sitting over the pot of herbs and allowing steam to penetrate my reproductive system, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm bawling my eyes out.
Wow.
The tears are coming, and different moments
I'm
are
sure that's
coming.
something you weren't even expecting to happen during this session, right?
No, I wasn't expecting it to happen. Um, and so I had to sit with that after a while.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time that I experienced the beauty in being able to utilize womb steaming as a way to also release trauma
Oh, okay.
because trauma is held in our body
Mm-hmm.
and it's held in our nervous system. But when we experience certain types of traumas, they're actually held in our womb space
Mm-hmm.
and in our within our reproductive system.
Mm-hmm.
And so having that experience also just led me into wanting to open that up to other women who I know have experienced trauma and those who also wanted to utilize womb steaming as a way to help them with their period, as a way
Mm-hmm.
to help them as an alternative to what traditional medicine was offering them.
Right.
And just like you said, I am not against traditional medicine. I believe that it can work alongside, that we should be able to work alongside
Right.
and offer different alternatives
Right. Exactly.
to individuals.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that intimate story with us. It kind of it reminds me of not a lot of people. I haven't told this story about myself to many people because I've been, I guess, maybe waiting for the right moment or waiting for to see, like, is it true
Mhm,
for
mhm,
myself? But
mhm,
of me actually, I feel like anyway that I actually cured myself, if you want to call it that, um, from having about 30 years worth of migraines
mhm,
after finally coming to the realization that it was not a physical trigger that was making them happen, it was an emotional trigger.
mhm,
I finally figured it out after 30 something years of
mhm.
suffering with these migraines. And once I addressed that, I haven't had one since.
Wow.
So that, what your story just kind of reminded me of that. And I've not really told many people about that because, like I
Mhm.
said, I've been waiting to see, like, okay, am I going to
Is
get another
you're
one? Or
gonna get
is it
it.
true? Did I really do this? Is it really over? But it's been almost 5 years.
Wow,
So I'm kind of convinced now that, yes, that was what it was. And that needed to be addressed. And I needed to release that trauma.
that's true.
Hmm.
I think that a lot of the conditions or emotional responses or behaviors that we have, even when it comes to womb steaming, things like fibroids and cysts so on physical sense they exist, but they're tied spiritually to different conditions, whether we are holding on to something.
Yeah.
And it can be repressed emotions. It can be that maybe we've been giving too much or some seriously emotional pain unresolved traumas. The thing about it is that oftentimes we have to be in a space and a place to be willing to get to the root of what
Right.
is causing the problem.
Right.
But oftentimes we tend to want a quick fix,
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes, and it's hard to address that stuff, especially when you think that it's not affecting me, you know,
right.
and you don't want to dredge that stuff up and deal with
Mhm,
it, right? Because you feel like, oh, that's in my past, I've dealt with it, but
mhm,
which is what I thought in my situation, I was like, it's not affecting me, I'm okay with it, but it was affecting me.
right.
Yeah,
And you realize that.
yeah.
And then now look at that. You no longer have
Hmm.
the migraines.
Right.
So I really encourage women to tune in and tap in and begin to release and relieve. I'm very big on advocating for women's health around our reproductive system because I found out even in my studies that hysterectomies are the second most common surgery
Really.
that happen in the United States.
Wow, I didn't know that.
They are the second most common surgeries.
Mm.
So one in every 5 women you meet will have already had a hysterectomy.
Wow.
And in women of color, you're going to find that it's going to be 2 to
Mm.
3. So
Wow.
it's a higher ratio there. And I say to myself, what is happening?
Right.
There aren't too many alternatives offered as much as, okay, this has to go.
Mhm.
And so I find that there's so much of this I call it a disconnection from our bodies um, that has been happening over the years. Just
Mhm.
what is this about the female anatomy or women that it's kind of like, let's get it out.
Yeah.
Let's remove. This is not good. This is not good.
Yeah.
But this is the center of birth. This is the center
Mhm.
of life. This is
Yeah.
bring things into the world, physical
Mhm.
and spiritual. It
Yeah.
does always have to be a physical birthing. And when we're disconnected from that, we operate different.
Mhm.
And again, I'm not telling anyone that they shouldn't have a hysterectomy. I'm saying look into your options.
Right.
So some of and there are studies that we have data on women who have avoided having to have a hysterectomy, have avoided having to have surgery for fibroids,
Mhm.
and even have resolved things like endometriosis through utilizing womb steaming
Mhm.
as a means of that.
Okay. Wow. So, okay, let's talk about, what is in these womb stealings. You use herbs, right?
Mhm.
And so what types of herbs are typically used during your steaming and why? Does it vary based on the person or is it like a standard protocol?
So the herbs that are used do vary by the person because it's going to determine, first of all, we have to determine what is the purpose that you're coming for
Okay.
the womb steam.
Mhm.
Um, I do I do look at the cycle and the history within your cycle and anything else that you want to share.
Okay.
That is going to inform what would be some of the best herbs to utilize. There are specific herbs that are able to increase libido. There are herbs that are able to do more cleansing, and there are herbs that are able to nourish
Okay.
and promote circulation within our bodies. So it's finding that right balance for for the individual. There is a general mesh of herbs that would be considered that you could pretty much anyone could use. But
Mhm.
again, I like to tailor specifically to the individual because everyone's body is different.
Right.
So things like, for instance, raspberry leaf,
Mm.
that is great for cramps. That is, I mean, you can also drink that as a tea whenever you have cramps.
Okay, I didn't know that.
And lavender is a very calming and soothing herb that can be used within steam as well. We have calendula, and calendula is also a cooling type of herb that is used. So if you have any type of like burning or itching, and we'll talk about who can use that and who can't. So there are
Okay.
different herbs that inform whether if you have an infection, whether you are having hot flashes and you're trying to, cool down,
Okay.
whether you have too much heat in your body,
Hmm.
whether you have a long cycle and you're trying to shorten that cycle.
Okay.
Whatever it is that you're looking to achieve,
For that.
there's an herb. Exactly.
Okay.
There's an herb for that. Um, Another herb, hibiscus, is great for nourishing the blood as well.
Mhm.
There's so many different herbs that we
Okay.
use within.
Can you walk us through what a typical session would look like and like how long do these sessions take?
So typically, um, I would do an intake to find out your cycle history and also any other conditions that you have. And once I get that information and you are now coming in for the session, you'll come into a nice calming environment.
Mhm.
I generally offer some form of either water or tea
Okay.
during the session. And you would change into a gown, a steaming gown or
Mhm.
skirt. Afterwards, I will prepare the herbs based on our intake and conversation. And I will prepare the herbs and sit them into the sauna, a steam sauna. And I'll have you gently sit over the sauna. And while you're sitting over the sauna, I go through a meditative chakra balancing, and also where you would set intentions
Okay.
during that time period. As far as how long you will steam, generally, most people can steam for 30 to about 45 minutes, but generally 30. Some women have to steam for shorter time periods. And there's also whether we use heat to keep the herbs hot or we just do a one time where the herbs that you're using already heated up. Because again, depending on what's happening with the body, you may not be able to tolerate consistent heat.
Okay.
Okay. And you are at least um a foot away from the boiling pot herbs
Okay.
when you but it's a very calming and relaxing environment.
Okay. Are there any precautions or potential side effects that people should know about
Yes. So precautions to steaming is that if you should not steam when you are menstruating.
during your cycle?
You should
Okay.
not steam during your cycle. You should not steam when you are pregnant
Okay.
and or if you think you are pregnant
Okay.
without the guidance of a trained practitioner.
Okay.
Also, if you have any serious infections or open wounds,
Mm-hmm.
you should not steam. You should
Okay.
not use essential oils to steam.
Period. No
Period.
essential oils. It should
You
be
should
herbs.
not use
Okay.
essential oils in your steaming. Essential oils are potent.
Right.
That can actually cause burns.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Can cause burns.
Okay.
And so, um, and you should get guidance from a trained practitioner
Right. Is
because
this
steaming
something that
can
people
be,
do at home?
you can do it at home
Okay.
and it can be your self-care time at home.
Yeah.
And for that, it's very easy to do at home. You simply need a vessel
Mm-hmm.
in which you would want to put the herbs and the water in. And you're able to, there are different positions in which you can sit, or
Okay.
you can also get a steam sauna.
Okay.
As far as what herbs to use, I always just suggest that people really talk to someone who is trained to give them direction in
Right.
terms of what herbs they should be using,
Mm.
because I feel like that you're going to get the best
Test results.
from doing that. And you also don't want to burn yourself
Mhm.
in any way. I think a lot of times that's what has been a turn off in terms of steaming, with
Mhm.
even some medical practitioners going that you will burn your body, or you will burn your vagina, you will, you
Mhm.
know, and yes, done the wrong way, you can,
Okay.
because it should never burn and it should never hurt.
Gotcha. Yeah. So definitely, if you've never done it before, highly you see a professional
See a
first.
professional. I
Yeah.
mean, when we think about steam cleanses things,
Mhm.
right? So
Right.
it's a nat just by itself without
Yeah.
even putting herbs in there. There are different effects, the effects of
The
steam.
steam. Okay.
So how far, you don't want to be that close. If you would
Yeah.
never want to put your hand over their boiling kettle and the steam is coming out, or a pot, right? You wouldn't want to put your hands directly over
Right.
that.
Right.
And so it's important to really just get assistance,
Yeah.
especially the first time.
I'm sure you as a trained professional know
Mhm.
the right temperature to make the water so you are
Absolutely.
avoiding that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I always tell my clients that if when they're sitting on the sauna and it begins to feel too hot, do not suffer in silence, because
Mhm.
that is not what is supposed to happen.
Okay.
It is not supposed to burn at all.
Okay. Yes. So I was going to ask, are there any common misconceptions about womb steaming that you've encountered? So I'm sure that's probably one of them, where, like you said, practitioners or medical professionals are against it because people have had bad experiences because they're not doing it properly.
Right.
Is there anything else that any misconceptions about it that you've come across?
Um, just that, uh, some people say it doesn't help, it hurts. And there are people that are not, that should not steam.
Hmm.
Steaming is not necessarily for everyone.
Okay.
Also, if you've had a tubal, why is the word leaving? If you had your tubes tied,
Right. Okay. That's not good.
you may not want to steam,
Untie
or
them, loosen them up.
it actually could. So
Ah.
there are situations, or if you have an IUD, if you
Hmm.
use an IUD, it can dislodge that IUD.
Ah.
So again, working with a practitioner would let you know, well, you have an IUD, you're not going to want to steam for 30 minutes.
Mm. Okay.
That can easily dislodge your IUD.
Okay.
So those are different situations in which you would not want to
Want to do it.
steam.
Okay. Do you have any advice you would give to someone interested in trying this for the first time? Like how to maybe go about even finding a practitioner in their area if they can't come here and see you?
Absolutely. So I would recommend going on um, a website called Steamy Chicks,
Steamy
Steamy Chicks
chicks.
Institute, and they are all about steaming.
Oh, okay.
And within there, there's a directory.
Mhm.
And in the directory, you can find practitioners in your area who are
Awesome.
certified
Well,
practitioners.
that makes it
So
easy.
that's a resource that is able to be utilized.
Okay.
Yes,
Steamychicks.com.
Steamy Chicks and Steamy Chick dot. And if you're not able to do that, I would do a search. I would want to find out from the practitioner that you find, how did they learn about it?
Mm-hmm.
What are the protocols that they use? And what is their method of intake, right?
Okay.
Um, have a conversation with them to see whether or not they're proficient enough,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
that
And
you
use that intuition,
and
right? You'll
use,
know.
absolutely. And again, thank you,
Yeah.
Shante, for that. Yes, use that intuition. You will definitely know.
Okay. Well, that's definitely helpful. At least even just having that resource of that website to help people find a
Mhm.
practitioner, because like you said, this isn't something that you hear about on the streets often, so it's definitely helpful. Before we wrap it up, is there any maybe memorable client experience that you can think of that's demonstrated the true potential benefits of this service? Any examples you can give us of like somebody having maybe a major breakthrough, or even just your own story in general was an example of that even?
Um, yes, there is a client that sticks out to me. She didn't know fully what to expect when she came in,
Mhm.
but when she arrived and just first of all, the atmosphere was calming for her.
Mm,
During her session, as we went through some intentions and affirmations, um, and she was done, she felt more calm and at peace. But later on, so a few days after, she texted me and she said, oh my gosh, all these different things have come up
mm,
since we steamed.
mhm,
And it was helpful for her because there was a questioning that she had. And this was actually around some trauma that she had experienced.
okay.
And so it was a release for her as
Mhm,
well. So she came in, she came in for help around her cycle. However, she did receive help around that, but it extended even more into breakthroughs with the relationships that she had with her mother and
mhm.
her grandmother. So there were some
Mhm.
maternal wounds
Some healing going on with that.
that that came about, and
Wow.
as a result of that, she was able to begin to reach out and begin to heal
Mm,
those wounds. So,
awesome. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. And that just kind of goes to show too that might not even be an immediate effect or benefit that you receive. Like the
mhm.
healing can continue on even days or weeks after receiving the session. Is there just kind of just made me think of, is there a typical amount of sessions that people need to have done, or is it just again just kind of depends on the individual?
If you are if there are no irregularities, let's say, with your menstrual cycle,
Mm-hmm.
you can steam once to twice a month, once before your cycle, once
Mm-hmm.
before your period, and right after. That
Okay.
would be twice a month on a for a regular basis. If you have
Mhm.
something more involved going on, you may need to steam more frequently and or further apart.
Okay.
But typically once to twice a month. And again, that can be done in your home or at the practitioner's place,
Right.
however you determine or is determined best. But for most people who have a healthy period, once or twice a month is
Okay.
fine.
Okay. Well, it definitely sounds like this treatment can has, many benefits for women all across the board. And I know how easy it is and it's non-invasive. It feel a lot less intimidated to actually try it out.
Okay.
Do you have anything else you would like to share with the audience today about womb steaming or just self-care in general?
I would just encourage us, especially as women, to really make self-care a priority.
Mm,
And that self-care does not have to be something that is difficult.
right.
It is taking small steps, and those small steps will lead to other steps. But if we never begin, then we will remain where we are. Self-care is also about evolving.
Mhm.
So make the first step. Just begin.
Yeah.
And there's community and spaces. People are willing and ready to help you along the journey and
Right.
to hold space for you. But
Right.
make yourself a priority so that you will be able to um, give to others the way that you truly want to.
Yes. Exactly. Thank you for that. Well, thank you again for coming on the show today and helping us learn more about a new holistic healing modality. You want to tell our listeners how they can find you and get more details on what you offer or how to book an appointment with you?
Sure. So the easiest way to find me is actually on Instagram. My handle is All Natural Reset. I'm also on Facebook. I'm definitely here in Tempe at Sozo Healing House.
Mhm.
And you can also email me at info@allnaturalreset.com.
Okay. I'll put that in the notes too so they can see the spelling of All Natural Reset and make sure that's in there for you. If anybody wants to reach out to Andrea, you can do that. Thank you to our listeners today for tuning into our episode. I am your host, Shantae. Be well, my friends.